Hey guys, I am Ibigandscary. I'm bringing you another StarCraft 2 replay, this time featuring Depression in the top right corner, playing our blue Protoss, and in the bottom left we have a red Zerg known as RootFitzy. Fitzy plays for Team Root, I know that much. He has had some moderate success recently. I'm not 100% sure how recently he came to Team Root, but I think he came from Team Habitat. Beyond that, don't know much about him. I do know that, according to Wikipedia, he's got some wicked awesome builds that are queen-centric and kind of favors a non-mobile army over a very mobile one. So I'll see if that plays into that. The build order that they had posted there was specific to the Terran, though, so it'll be interesting to see what he brings to the table against Protoss. Depression is in Masters, RootFitzy Grandmasters, but the skill difference between the two levels is getting so narrow these days. I mean, if you're at the top of Masters, you might as well be in Grandmasters, and vice versa. It's really interesting to see how tight those two leagues are getting. Basically, you know, you go from silver to gold. You have a huge skill jump. But with Master and Grandmaster, it can be the very, very minor things like build order. We can see one gate opening for Depression, no early gas or anything like that. We're on Tal'Darim Altar, which is a pretty old map, but it's very well known, very classic. I like it a lot, getting that gas too, so that he can follow the classic build order of getting the Cybernetics core up with some warp gate. Very narrow choke leading off into the natural, which is super exposed by way of air and having lots of different canyons that you can jump up and down, but a very large ramp leading down makes it so that the choke is usually up here when you're trying to defend your natural pathway, heading off to the third, which is taken by some destructible debris, but also a very large secondary pathway over to the left and a much larger path. Tal'Darim Altar has some huge open expanses, making it very dangerous for Protoss to move out in case they are worried about a surround from a Zergling heavy Zerg force, so that might have something to think about. And then a plethora of watchtowers in the center make it so it's very difficult to move large forces without it being spotted, but you do have some backwards paths like the one to the third. That's Tal'Darim Altar. You should know that by now, though. It's been around for forever. Extractor trick for RootFitzy, just getting that one extra mineral producing drone so that you can saturate that natural which is being started. Classic time for the spawning pool, classic timing for the hatchery. It's going to be finishing shortly. Sometimes you'll see the hatch first, but I think he's being just a little bit more conservative, getting out some Zerglings so that he can get some map control. Depression has opted for a Nexus after that one gate, so he's not going to have much of a ground presence. He's got that single Zealot on the way, and it'll be finishing a couple of seconds after those Zerglings start to knock down the Nexus. It depends on how the Zerglings decide to play this. It could be that they shoot for the Nexus. It could be that they move up into the probe line. It looks like he's going for the more immediate results of killing probes rather than trying to go for the much bigger hit, which is trying to take down that Nexus. Some really good micro there from Depression, cycling his weak probes to the back. See him moving up the weak ones to the north side while keeping some fresh ones on the south side. It's a really nice play to keep those guys alive. He's only suffered one or two, just one worker killed for the cost of 4 Zerglings. So check out the units lost tab right there. It's he's coming out ahead of that, and he had 6 Zerglings in his probe line before he even had a single Zealot out. So that's a very nice handling of that aggression. Not by any means unexpected. I mean, you can basically expect to lose all of those Zerglings, but usually you get more of a return for that sacrifice of that first wave, and it's always helpful to have those guys out to control the map to prevent this sort of play, which is Depression poking out with his first and Stalker and Zealot, keeping just a single Stalker at home for defense and denial of scouting. Speaking of scouting, he's got that nice Overlord placement there just to see if anything goes down. Nothing on the north side. Usually you see an Overlord positioned right around here, but he might be worried about the Stalkers, which are now out in the middle of the map trying to hunt down some loose Overlords. 2 gas have been grabbed by RootFitzy. He's got that spawning pool down, but hasn't started on that metabolic boost, deciding to spend all that gas on armor first. A nice play there to keep his Zerglings alive when they engage those Zealots. But it's interesting to see just a single Overlord in the base. Usually you want more. Maybe you want to see when the gas timing hits. We can see another geyser is going down. He's kind of flirting around with his Overlord, poking one direction and another. But he's not aware if those gas geysers have been taken. I don't think the vision is far enough. Yeah, I can see that one. So he knows it hasn't been taken at the expansion just yet. But 2 more are on the way. So let's see if he can see it. Yeah, he can. Okay, cool. So the wall off's being completed. He's got the forge, he's got the secondary gateways, and most importantly, a sentry on the main force. Depression is moving a probe on the right side. Maybe gonna think about drop a proxy pylon. More likely just a presence there to see when RootFitzy decides to grab that third. I don't think Fitzy can prevent a 2-base play from Depression, but the appropriate way to deal with that is usually just to amass up another base, get that third up. He's already going to work on the Zerglings for the destructible debris, and he's moving off a scouting Zergling just to see if there's any hidden expansions. I don't think this probe is expecting to see anything up here. Maybe just a single Zergling would be in the area to scout when that third timing is going down. A little bit of a missed micro on the drones. I don't think he was harassed by anything, but the 1-1 will be finishing shortly. And the metabolic boost is well under halfway, so RootFitzy is going to get up some speedlings. Wow, look at this. 2 Stargates being built for Depression. So here's that 2-base play. He's got quite a lot of gas. He's got the 4 gas. He's got the income for it. With the +1 to the weapons on the air, I think he's going to be trying for some sort of heavy Starbase play. This is a really good idea. It's tough to move out and take that third on Tal'Darim Altar. You leave yourself very exposed because it's impossible to wall it off with just one wall. And this is going to be a really good play because it looks like Fitzy is trying to take that third. You get out a bunch of Phoenixes, you can decimate a probe line, and especially if Depression can keep this third hidden for an extended period of time, he can afford to mass produce Phoenixes, or maybe even move up to higher tech, get some Void Rays out. And a Carriers with the +1, I don't think he's just going to go for a single Void Ray and go Overlord hunting, because there's not a lot of Overlords out and about. You can see a couple are off at the main base, a couple more back home. Where are they? You'd expect more. Okay. There's 1 or 2, but the one back at home is already, succeeded in killing itself, probably suiciding off into the wild blue yonder, and that's actually a good idea. This has not been scouted by that Overlord fleet beacon going down also in the back, so Carriers probably, or it might be just an early mothership. Scouting probe has been scouted by the Zerglings instead, but most importantly, that third on the far left side for Depression has not been noticed by the Speedlings. Usually RootFitzy was probably going to send his Zerglings off into the corners to scout for that, but the number of Phoenixes is reaching that critical mass. He's got 6 of them out right now. These guys are going to do some devastating damage to the Overlords. However, a good placement by Fitzy, scouting that those Phoenixes are on their way. We expect to see quite a lot of spores going down in short order, catching a couple of the drones as they transfer. Not the biggest loss in the world, but 44 to 61 harvesters. It looks like the harvester count is heavily in Depression's favor, and it's probably just going to stay that way as it all falls. Remember that initial harassment had only killed 1 drone, and then another one died from those Zerglings, and now we can see 8 of them are up. Wow, look at all those queens. Those Phoenixes have to pull back. It was interesting to see that Fitzy, once he noticed that these Phoenixes were coming down, he pulled the queen from his main base back up to congeal with all of the other queens to protect them, so that even if they lifted off 1, they'd have to lift off all of them. But with this number of Phoenixes, they wouldn't have an issue with picking up every single one and dealing with them that way. The Zerglings are getting chased off into the left corner. Will they notice the third? That will be Censure. It looks like no, they're just trying to get home. The Phoenixes are basically clearing off the top portion. There is a Zergling hidden in the trees scouting that third. And it looks like a probe transfer is being done by Depression. Oh, and those Phoenixes have taken out the Zergling at the watchtower, and they've also cleared a pathway, basically running them so that they can't see the probe transfer that's happening. This is a great play by Depression, protecting that expansion, making it so he doesn't see this probe transfer. Basically makes it so RootFitzy really has no idea that that third's going on. Surprised not to see a plethora of spore crawlers down here, one of them being burrowed on the 2 of them on the south side of that expansion, but the north remains relatively undefended. Got some infestors on the way, 4 of them total, and Hive Tech is morphing, so hopefully we'll see a Spire soon, because Corruptors can do quite a bit of damage to those phoenixes, and he'll need a lot more of that as the mothership begins to finish and the carriers are starting to get out. +2 also on the way with that graviton catapult for the carriers. Those phoenixes are being incredibly cost effective. I have a difficult time looking at anything else because he's using them so effectively, but plenty of infestors are on the field. Hopefully he can start to do some damage. You can see that Depression has only lost 100 minerals, what with all of the lost units, all the lost drones. 14 of them have gone down. You can see that the harvester count is beginning to equalize, but that's because the bases have equalized, and hopefully Fitzy can start to send out a lot more units. Mothership is out, beginning to cloak. 2 carriers also out with full interceptor complements. How many we have? Just the 2 for now. But this is an awkward position for Fitzy. He's got a very powerful ground army, but he doesn't have a lot of anti-air. What he really needs is some lucky fungal growths, and there goes one right now on that just waiting Phoenix bundle. They were just soft for just a couple seconds. Oh, but getting his infestors way too close, allowing the phoenixes to pick them up. However, the queens arrive, and this is what I was talking about earlier. Fitzy really likes his queens, and there's his anti-air. Some really nice transfuses keeping them alive, and all of a sudden all of those phoenixes have gone down. I think he lost 6 total. That is a significant loss. Look at this, resources lost now to 2100, losing 2000 resources in just that battle. A very stroke of luck for Fitzy just to get that engagement. He really needed those fungal growths, and that was the only mistake that Depression has made with those phoenixes. He kept using them on the high ground, keeping them away from those infestors, but it was only a matter of time until they lost out. But time was all Depression needed. He's got 3 carriers out. He's got 4 Stargates total working on carriers. In the second, we'll have an absolute critical number, and when I say critical, I mean it's critical to my computer, because I doubt seriously I'll be able to stop the my computer from actually showing you those probes, or the what are they called? Good lord, I'm having a stroke. I seriously am having a stroke. And interceptors, thank you. So the interceptors, once those interceptors get out on the field, my computer will crash. I was telling a joke and I overcommitted to the joke. It was terrible. Broodlords are not terrible though. They are pushing into the natural, but you got to be very careful not to over engage here. Not a lot of corruptors are out on the field. In fact, 0, what with the last 2 of them being warped into Broodlords also. These carriers begin to show themselves, pushing out just a little underneath the cloak from the mothership, taking down one of the Broodlords in their collective fire and cloaking the Nexus, keeping that alive. Good engagement for Depression. Then it lose too many of the harvesters too from the Broodlords, which is key. Wow, harvester count up to 81. You can see that the income tab actually shows you how many minerals we're talking about from that third. RootFitzy's got to be scratching his head, because he knows that Protoss just got that. Oh, there it goes. He knew that Protoss just got that 3rd expansion. He shouldn't be able to afford so many carriers on this 2 base, but he knew that there was a 3rd somewhere. He must have just missed it on his first round of scouting, but he now knows what he's dealing with. He's dealing with a 4-based Protoss, and the 3rd's so far away, these Broodlords are going to take forever to get there, and it's going to give Depression just a little bit more time to get up to max. He's at 176 right now, over 130. A huge Congo line of probes transferring down, I guess, to the natural, just to resaturate that place from their initial bombardment from the Broodlords. What type of anti-air are we seeing coming out of RootFitzy? Because I really don't feel like he's taking this air attack seriously. He just is relying on queens and fungal growths right now, and that's not going to be enough against these carriers. Carriers are going to do some absolutely devastating damage. Maybe Neural Parasite will help out if they can get lucky and grab that mothership. But this is the sort of attack that RootFitzy needs. He needed to find a soft spot and hit it hard with these Broodlords, but he's got to be very careful too, because the carriers know exactly where those Broodlords are, and this is an intimidating force. It's going to move out and it's going to catch those Broodlords and devastate them. So Fitzy can't afford to lose them. Running a little bit low on gas and minerals, so he's not going to be able to re-macro quickly enough to harvest an army that can take out those carriers. But it definitely looks like this hidden 3rd is going to go down before these carriers can arrive. But Depression doesn't really need it. He's up to 190 supply right now. Very supply block, harshly supply block. Oh, and a good move by Fitzy, splitting his Broodlords, 1 to top, 1 to bottom. Hopefully he'll split the difference and only lose 4 of the Broodlords, and it looks like a sacrificial hatchery is going to get taken down by the carriers. too fast for Fitzy to cancel it. It looks like a counterattack for Fitzy, also losing one hatchery, so he's deciding just to go for the natural, but oh, the Zerglings attached a pylon, just giving enough warning for Depression to throw down a force field, and all of a sudden the infestors have to hurl out a bunch of energy to get some infested Terran to break down the front door rather than those Zerglings doing a run by. Wow, good play here. Nidus Worm, those queens are so slow, the immobility of those queens, they're affording some anti-air, as are the infested Terran, but once this main force, once these Void Rays and carriers get into the area, you've got to worry about your units. So this is him pulling them back. He's getting them into the Nidus Worm. He's going to unload them back at the home base. At the same time, the third is being sacked by the infested Terran, and all of the expendable units, the infested Terran, are going to stay behind. Got to be very careful with all these infestors. They represent a very large amount of the anti-air that Fitzy has on the field right now, and he's got to buy time for this Nidus Worm to come out. Those carriers are getting awfully close. He can't afford to lose any of these infestors because they're everything that he has. And the Nidus Worm just barely pops. A lot of the anti-air from the infested Terran, as soon as those Nidus Worm was full, it dies just instantly. Really, really tight timing. If only Depression had been a little bit faster. Look at that supply, though. 135 over 172. He was at max just a couple of seconds ago. He's lost 2 bases. He lost all of his economy, down to 40. Ridiculous number of harvesters have gone down, probably half the total number. And RootFitzy has remained pretty much intact. He's lost a single base over here, but it was not saturated at all. His main base has gone completely untouched, but Depression's main army has gone completely untouched. He's not engaged directly. He's got pretty much every carrier that he started out with. I don't even think he's lost a single carrier yet. That's insulting. Dropping a hatchery down where Depression was mining just moments before. I don't know if he did it on purpose or not, but the probes are going to clean that up and then probably clean up the Zerglings in the area. What type of upgrades are we dealing with? The action has been so fast. 3-1 for Protoss Air, and for Zerg Air, we've got 1-1 on the ground. I just need something. 2-2 and 3. Wow. So really good upgrades out of both players. Staying on top of that, we can see the 3-3 or 3 air and 3-2 flying is finishing off. That mothership is definitely paying for herself. Throwing down a vortex. A lot of infested Terran are being thrown in there, but I don't think there's any Archons in there, so they're not going to be very useful. Oh, massive fungal growth down on the bulk of the carriers, causing look at that frame rate down to 9 frames per second. The carriers turning around to engage. All those infested Terrans drop. Another nice fungal growth, exposing all the units. The mothership staying alive, though. Her shields are still totally intact. Yeah, the fungal growth's doing some damage to the units beneath, but all of the queens have gone down, as well as the bulk of RootFitzy's ground army. The infested Terran are quickly, our infestors are quickly retreating, but their numbers have been severely degenerated. The third, no, this is a natural. The natural has gone down, as well as the majority of the drones in that area, but look at the harvester count, 60 to 25. It looks like the Zerglings have cleaned up the probes that were over on the third. I'm going to snip over there. Remember all those probes that were there. Either they've been cleaned up, which would explain the decreased number of harvesters, or they've been moved off to re-macro at the third, which is very poor saturation in that area. Back to the action. Depression is moving down to the south side. He's cleaned up that natural completely. Still have a plethora of bases to deal with. RootFitzy has this fourth. His natural is still slightly mining. It looks like a Nidus network is functional in the bottom right corner, loaded up with those infested Terran, and he's popping them out over on the opposite side of the map. It looks like Fitzy's just going to give up the entire goat here and allow this base to get sacked. Broodlords are beginning to fire down on the only remaining base for Depression that is mining, but Depression still has this massive intimidating army in Fitzy's base. Every bit of infrastructure that Fitzy has is going to go down completely, as well as the Nidus network that would allow those infestors to pop back out, or even some drones to throw down a hatchery once everything's been said and done. Infestors arriving back from the bottom left to the top right. Another Nidus Worm. Very nice play there. Throwing out a couple of infested Terran, which are going to take out that Nexus and pulling the probes. Good play there. You got to keep those probes alive. The air base is, oh wow, the Air Force from Depression has split. The mothership is staying behind down by the main base, full energy, probably going to be used for a recall later on, and that also gives greater mobility. The carriers and the Void Rays are a little bit faster than the mothership, not having to be tethered to that mothership. Another round of infested Terran are going to take down the basic infrastructure Depression, but without the income, he can't really afford to get out any more units anyway. He's just got to be as cost effective with these units as he possibly can. Finding another mining base. The third down in the bottom left corner is not mining anything except for gas right now, so not a huge loss there. If that falls, and with the mothership right beside it, then it's likely to fall. Depression has lost his only remaining mining base, and the infestors are in the rest of his infrastructure. He doesn't have any proxy pylons placed anywhere. Everything that's inside his main base is all that really remains. So he's got to be very careful of that. Got to keep his probes alive so that he can drop a nexus somewhere. The Void Carrier and Void Race have repositioned. Mothership is moving back up to the main base with all haste. Probably going to use a recall there once this base has been taken down. Got to be careful. Can't leave up a single extractor. Extractor has gone down. Mothership is almost at the home base. Once it arrives, oh, is there an observer still out on the field? One observer. I'm going to leave this units tab open because it's probably very more important to know what's going on there than anywhere else. The mothership is poised for a recall. It's only a matter of time before these guys get snapped back into the home base. The hatcheries are being thrown up at every which and just every corner of the map, basically. Mothership using its cloak to keep places hidden. I wonder how these drones know to attack that Stargate. It's cloaked, as is that assimilator. I don't see any detection. That's weird. Maybe because they're unpowered. I do not know, though. It looks like Depression has found one of the bases for RootFitzy in the bottom left corner. He's very close to another one, too, which is the only remaining mining base. Oh, but a massive recall from Depression. That mothership was just waiting to do that the entire time. Couldn't allow any more of these structures to fall. Finding the last two, no, one of the last two. Broodlords, only two of them remaining now, somewhere hidden around the base over here by the Nidus worm. Lucky, yes. Hatchery up at the third. This is going to be tough for Depression because he's really got to hunt down every single one of these hatcheries, and the money that RootFitzy has is so, there's so much he can just continue to throw down hatcheries for forever. But every time that Depression moves out, he leaves his home base open to harassment from the infestors, which have been burrowed, and we still have an observer out. I wonder where that observer is. Is it with the main force? It's probably somewhere with those Void Rays. Oh well. Mothership is remaining at home, though, cloaking all the ground units, hopefully going to keep them protected. But remember, fungal growth does expose cloaked units, and as well I wonder, you can't tell, but I wonder if neuroparasite has been researched. That would be a clutch play if he could neuroparasite that queen. Spawning pool just chilling off by its own home. Okay, the infestors have reached the queen. Probably going to throw down a fungal. No, it is a neuroparasite. So he did research that. It's so rare to get that. Throwing out all of those infested Terran. The mothership is definitely going to go down. Doesn't have enough energy for a recall, especially once the vortex was thrown down. So this was a great play, getting that mind control, allowing the infested Terran to come out. Probably he should be focusing down that mothership though right now. At the same time, a nexus has been made down in the previous Fitzy's home base. It is scouted though, and the Zerglings are going to town, even though the Void Rays and carriers are moving down with all haste, accompanied by that observer. They're not going to get there in time. That nexus has gone down. Where is... Here is the remaining pylon for Depression. You see, he's got 8 supply. He knows it. I wonder if Depression has vision. Fitzy has vision of the pylon. He does. He knows that it's there too. So Depression's going to have to split up his forces. He's going to have to split up his units and leave them behind. I think maybe he'll just leave his carriers and send out only his Void Rays because they're a little bit faster. Oh no, he just split it down the middle, sending his carriers and Void Rays out to find one of the remaining places. So many drones still on the field, though, 31 of them total, and Fitzy is remaining mining. He's just got so much money he can continually crank out hatcheries, and probably can't crank out units too much. He still has that spawning pool. He can make a bunch of Zerglings, but he's got 2 hatcheries on the way. These infestors are swinging around on the south side, probably going to throw out a bunch of units on the ground, but I don't know how he's going to get vision of the high ground. He can't run Zerglings in because they'll get chewed up really, really fast. Here come the infested Terran. And here they come popping out, and it looks like they are focusing. They're hitting the pylon, and I don't understand how. That's game, though. It looked like Fitzy had found one of the bases. There are 2 more hatcheries on the field. What? What? That was incredible. This was an incredible game, guys. I don't show excitement very easily, but I'm very excited right now. So, let me know how they hit that pylon. I'm missing something here because there's no Overlord nearby. And unless this is not actually a height difference, and it sure as hell looks like there's a height difference there. Maybe they neuroparasited something. I bet they neuroparasited something. And it's just not showing up here. I don't know. I really don't know. Let me know, guys. If you have a game you want me to cast, you could PM me here or on Reddit. If you have a comment, you could leave me a comment one way or another. I will see you guys later. I am Big and Scary. Bye.